Welcome everyone. Today we'll have a characters guide for the units that is available in Klee Banner. This will be Noelle, Sucrose, and also Xingqiu. Now to my surprise, those three characters are incredibly strong for their passives, for their comeback abilities, and also for their support potential. So I'm actually thinking they're kind of A+ or even S tier support units for the 4-star characters. In this detailed guide, what we'll do is we'll go through the skills, passives, and also constellations for 3 of the characters. After that, I have prepared a comprehensive comparison for the characters for the usage of the different artifact set, and also we'll talk about those. Also, what are the main stats you should look for and sub-stats to look for with the characters for their special artifact set. You can see Noelle wants to build for defense, you can see for elemental mastery for Sucrose, and similarly elemental mastery over here as well. We'll go through that as well. And finally, for each of the characters, we'll touch up on the best weapons in slot for the crafting weapons. The crafting weapons are more easily accessible to us, and this allows us to prepare our characters, if we get those characters, to make sure we have the correct weapons and consider what are the weapon options for those characters. We'll start by looking into Noelle, which is a Geo Claymore 2-hand user. I'm sure most of us have tried Noelle before, and her shield is very powerful for blocking damage, and also the shield, if triggered next to enemies, it also does damage as well. So 120% of the defense, also debuff enemy with Geo. On top of that, while the shield is on, Noelle's normal attack have a chance of healing. This chance is at 50% and also based on her defense. This can go to 100% if you get a duplicate of Noelle with the constellation, with level 1 constellation. And I'm not sure if you guys have noticed this, with Noelle's ultimate, her sweeping time, she actually increased her damage by her base or the current defense. So if her defense is 2000, her attack is increased by 800, and this in return makes her super strong during the sweeping time. One special highlight for Noelle's charge attack is that if you hold down to the left attack button, she will start to spin, and as she spins, she does continuous damage over time, and this can spin pretty much for about 100 stamina. If you got 200 stamina, you can do this twice, and this does some really great AoE damage. This is a very powerful skill, and we can build some of the artifact set with the charge attack. Noelle's passives are quite defensive. She will protect an ally, and also she will reduce her breastplate cooldowns to enable her to cast more shield. Noelle's passive for exploration is the cooking defense dish. So if you're cooking a defense dish, which we do have a video very soon guys, I'm preparing that one for all the cooking materials. So if she's cooking, there's a 12% chance to get extra product. Noelle's constellation makes her very durable. She heals for quite a bit, and also she does a lot of damage when she becomes 6 constellation unlocked. It's not a must-have, but you can see that she increased attack by additional 50% of her defense. I'm not sure if this is addictive, so we get 90% defense or we get 60% defense into attack. So I'm not sure how they worded it, but it's still, you will double or you will increase the damage by at least 50%. Now coming over to the artifact set choices and also the stat choices for the characters Noelle and everybody else, what I want to reinforce is, if you guys haven't seen my previous videos, I looked at the tier list for the artifacts, so you can sort them out by different ranking and by different sets. And also I had a look on another video about the typo with artifact with Akak Petra, which actually increased elemental damage by 35% with a shield, which is very powerful with Geo characters. And we'll actually start with this particular set for Noelle. Most people see Noelle as a support tank and a healing character, but as you build Noelle with higher constellations, you can really make her super powerful. For the first 2 sets, we'll look into her support potential, then we'll also look at her defensive potential. And the last set is more of like an optional item. I don't really recommend to go for the last set, but the first 4 are definitely workable. So with Active Pressure, you're looking at 15% Geo damage, which is not bad for her. And also on top of that, when Noelle creates a Geo shield, that is first debuffing enemies with elemental spell, with Pyro, Electric, Hydro, and Cryo, and then Noelle hits them with her shield or with her ultimate, she will increase the entire party's damage for that element. So if the enemy is debuffed by Pyro with the Look, then Noelle hits them with Geo, the entire party will have 35% increased Pyro damage for the next 10 seconds. This is very powerful as a support. Keep in mind, if you have a Geo character on the team and you don't have the set on Noelle, it still works. As long as there's a character with the set, Noelle triggers this, and the character pick up the shield, it can work. For full detailed video, I do recommend you guys check out the full videos for this one. Next up, knowing that Noelle scales with defense, what we can do is we can build her into higher defense 30%, which is not a bad lot because any of the main stats with the gears can give 30% and also give the resistance to the whole party. This is the biggest part, and this allows her to just be the tanky defensive support. She doesn't have to do much, she's here to cast her shield, soak some damage, and just be tanky. This is not the strongest support set. I'll recommend the first set if you're going for a support Noelle. Next up, we have the Gladiator and the Bloodstain. So both of those sets focus on Noelle's attack damage and normal attack. So the first one gives 18% attack and also will increase normal attack by 35% again. This is very straightforward and very powerful if you build for a damage Noelle. I've seen people hitting 2000, 300 and 4000 normal attack with Noelle. Similarly, Bloodstain gives you physical damage, which also combines with no stamina cost for your charge attack. Now you've seen how Noelle spins, and her charge attack is quite powerful. So if you don't like to right click, you want to go for AoE damage, her charge attack combos can also work. And finally, we have the shield set, which is just a fun set I included. So basically, when protected by Noelle's shield, the character will increase the damage by 40% normal and charge attack damage. Most of the time, Noelle will be the one with the shield because while under the shield, she also heals the team. So this is more for Noelle. Now, if you haven't subscribed, this is a really good time to do so. Make sure you also turn the bell on for the latest news as I find more of them for us. You can see that we're really dedicated for Genshin Impact. We'll have builds, guides, tips, news, and events updates for everything that's Genshin Impact related. Before we look at Noelle's stats with artifacts, we need to understand her breastplate, also swapping time, fully stacks with the defensive potential. So Noelle wants higher defense, and this is one of the skills we want to look at. So 40% of defense goes into attack, defense goes into healing, and damage absorption. So we really want to look into her defense. With the 5 artifacts, flower, feather, etc., I have listed them on the side, and you know the first 2 are always fixed. For the next ones, defense always is the top priority. There's always options to roll into physical or geo bonus damage for Goblet, and also critical rate and critical damage, one of those for the headpiece. So there are 3 choices for those 2. For the sap stats, you want to go for defense, attack, critical rate, and damage. After that, anything you want can be found. Keep in mind guys, if you found percentage on the main stat, you cannot find percentage defense again on the sap stats. So the main stats and sap stats cannot kind of overlap. So you don't have both. So over here you can see that I took out defense percent, not because we don't want it, but that we know the timepiece will have the defense percentage for Noelle. Next up, we have the crafting weapons for each of the characters. And I have to say, there is one weapon. There is only one weapon for Noelle, guys. It is the White Blend. This weapon increased damage at 42, but the sap stats increased defense, which in turn increased all her abilities. There is no other weapon that increased defense, guys. This is the one for her. On top of that, normal attack and charge attack increase attack and defense for 6 seconds by 4 stacks. So 24% attack and 24% defense as she attacks. This is the to-go weapon for Noelle, and because you can craft at the blacksmith, you can make multiple copies of this weapon as you get the 2-hand prototype. And with the prototypes, you can go up to 12% eventually to make Noelle a machine of damage and defense. She's super durable, she heals, and she can do ton of damage. So you're looking at 48% attack and defense at level 5 rank. Very powerful. Next up, we have Amino character Sucrose with the Catalyst user. So Sucrose, its spells are pretty nice, and I can't demonstrate you guys Sucrose because I don't have him yet. But just keep in mind, Sucrose is a very powerful Amino trigger character. He is one of the best, and his continuous damage with his ultimate is very strong. Because what Sucrose allows is, Sucrose passive over here, I'll show you guys over here. So when Sucrose triggers a throw effect, so this has to do with Pyro, Electric, Cryo, and Hydro. So when he triggers a effect, the matching elements of the character, let's say if the Luke had the fire on the enemy, the Sucrose triggers throw. This increased the Luke's elemental mastery by 50. So Sucrose is your perfect damage elemental support. On top of that, this is the triple S tier passive with Sucrose. I'm sure most of us are looking to weapon material enhancement, and as we craft them at the blacksmith, Sucrose have a 10% to increase the product. So what that means is, in the future, if you're crafting weapon enhancement materials, Sucrose basically give you a 10% discount, and this gets you more material for what you're making. As we go deeper in the constellation of Sucrose, you can see at level 6 with Sucrose, all the party members will gain additional 20% elemental damage bonus for the corresponding elements as Sucrose triggers his ultimate. And the biggest part of this is, this can also be combined with some of Sucrose's artifacts, which we'll have a look, to make him extremely powerful to enhancing your elemental damage. If you're going for elemental Diluc, maybe Mona, maybe Kachin, if you're going for elemental build, this can be very deadly. Sucrose is very powerful because his ability to enhance the party with extra elemental damage, especially with the catalyst conversion to increase everybody with 50 more elemental mastery. So with him, we'll focus on the elemental synergies, and the instructor is one of the best set for that. He gets elemental mastery higher, and also he increases the party's elemental mastery. Now there is a bug. I had several viewers mentioning this to me, and I also heard of this from friends as well. So the description is not correct for instructor. It's not when he uses elemental skill. I believe it's more when he uses his elemental burst spell. And he has to be present on the field for the spells to interact with an elemental combination for this effect, the 120% effect for the whole party. So the instructor set is a little buggy with translation. If you haven't tried it, do test it out and see how you can create the 120%. Double check the character's stats. So what you do is, as you cast the spells with Sucrose, you come back over here with your characters and you go into details and double check if you're actually getting the elemental bonus, which should be showing over here. Next up, the Vedimensin Vera, I cannot pronounce at all. So this is one of the perfect set for Sucrose as well, because Eminal damage is great for him. He does everything Eminal, and also the throw damage increased by 60%, decreasing the elements of the enemy by 40%. It's exactly what we want to do. So what that means is, if you have someone like Diluc, Diluc is my to-go example. Diluc debuff is Prio. Sucrose hits them with Eminal damage, and this kind of combines into a throw combination. When the throw is created, the enemy has 40% reduced pyro defense, and this makes Sucrose one of the best support. This particular piece of set can be farmed over here on this dungeon. I'll show you guys over here. So if you go into the map over here, you can see this dungeon, and this is where you farm the set. I don't recommend you guys rushing it before level 40 because you don't get the legendary 5-star drop rate. At level 40, you can consider going for this set if you're building for Sucrose. And finally, one of the combination sets that works well with Sucrose is always the Excel for the energy recharge, also for the increase of mana gain for the team. This doesn't really build him for damage for the team, so it's a little underwhelming. I still recommend the top two if you can, and the last one is just a situational one. If you don't have anything great for him, go for this particular set just for a mana and battery. For Sucrose target artifact stats, you're going for Elemental Mastery for the main stats for the Timepiece, Goblet, and Hype Piece. You'll also be looking for Elemental Mastery for all of the sub-stats that are available. Notice that if you don't get Elemental Mastery, you can find Elemental Mastery on the sub-stats. So if you're going for Elemental damage on the main stats, go for Elemental Mastery on the sub-stats. And you cannot find Elemental damage on the sub-stats, keep that in mind. And also here, if you went for critical rate or critical damage for more damage, which I still recommend for Elemental Mastery usually, but you can find Elemental Mastery in the sub-stats if you don't have on the main stats. Next up, we'll look at some of the crafting weapons for Sucrose. We're making the choice between the prototype Malus and the Mappa Mare. The Malus give us the energy recharge and a bit of healing, but we're using Sucrose not for the healing support, but rather for the damage support. So we're definitely going with the Mappa Mare for the elemental reaction, granting another 8 to 16% elemental damage bonus, maximum up to 2 stacks. What that means is, Sucrose can leave his Eminal ability like his ultimate on the field, and while that is ongoing, it will trigger more damage, and this will increase his damage by another 16%. So this is definitely one of the better items for him, and this makes his elemental spells much more powerful. We can also see that the prototype Malus, the secondary is HP, while the Elemental Mastery for Mappa Mare is Elemental Mastery, and that is the stat we're always looking for him. Next up, we have Xingqiu, the Hydro one-hand sword user. Xingqiu, compared to the other two characters, is a little underwhelming because he is a support, but there's a lot of other supports out there. Xingqiu doesn't heal that consistently, but he does a bit of Hydro damage when he casts his shield. This is not a shield, by the way, it's like a sword protection. The sword also reduces damage taken by you as the sword surrounds you. Unfortunately, I also don't have Xingqiu at the moment, so I can't show you guys the exact animation. But what happens is Xingqiu will initially start with 3 swords, and as you take damage, the sword will shatter and it reduces the damage the character takes. There is also Xingqiu's ultimate burst ability, which debuffs enemy with Hydro as he rains swords on them. But I do feel this ability is not as strong compared to the other characters, because we don't really expect Sucrose to do much damage, but more for the elemental synergy and elemental combinations. The biggest highlight, and one of the reasons why I would definitely consider having one of the Xingqiu, is because of his passive over here, Flash of Genius. This is one of the most incredible passives because it's at 25% when Xingqiu craft a character talent material. Now coming back to Sucrose over here, Sucrose's passive allows you to get a 10% for the weapon enhancement. We don't do weapon enhancement that much, but everybody and their friend will be doing character talent materials. And 20% extra to refund means you're getting a 25% discount, to be honest. And this is so powerful because those materials require stamina to farm or requires reason to farm, and those materials are very difficult to be obtained at certain levels. So you might be stuck on your level 3 or level 4 skills. I'll show you guys over here. And because of that, you might not be able to do the maximum damage. So come over to talent over here. You can see my Jin is currently maxed out with level 6 talents, but my Venti is not maxed out. He's still sitting on level 4. And my Vessel here only maxed out the Knight Rider. Everything else is still waiting. It does cost quite a bit as you go further, so it costs 3 books at the moment, and also quite a bit of the monster material. You can see here, to level 5 it costs already 6. At level 6 it costs 9 of the materials, so the cost actually increased by a lot. Xingqiu is a little weaker compared to the other 2 characters in terms of damage or support potential, and we have touched on the Excel and also the Instructor earlier, so we won't go for those. The Noblest Obligate is the one I think it can work on Xingqiu just for a bit of damage boost, but in reality 20% damage boost is not that great. And in replace of Xingqiu, I can go with another character. And Xingqiu is mostly, guys, he's just here for the Flash of Genius. He's a book buddy that's gonna help us with the talent materials. So I don't think Xingqiu is that strong unless you're building a super powerful Mona with the combination of Hydro debuffs. And to quickly touch on Xingqiu's target artifact sets, it's very similar to Sucrose. You're going for Elemental Mastery, at the same time you're going for Hydro damage increase, and that is the only difference between the 2 characters. Finally, for Xingqiu, the 2 crafting weapons with one hand are the Retro and also the Iron Sting. Both of those weapons don't seem too strong on him, and in my opinion, I am quite indifferent. I don't think I'll have Xingqiu that much on my team because I do not have Mona, and I also had a look at the Hydro weapons that's available for the one-handed. So this might help with the 12%, but in reality we're not really debuffing or we're not doing damage with him. He's just more here to cast his abilities, debuff enemy with Hydro, then move away to the next one. So what we can do is we can look for items or gears that give us the energy recharge, and on critical hit we can also go with the energy recharge. So this is more of an option to turn him into a stronger support. But if you're going for a bit of damage, the prototype Retro can also work. And lastly, the Iron Sting is effective enough to be used because he'll be casting elemental spells with elemental mastery. To summarize this video, you can see that characters like Noelle and also Sucrose can be very powerful as we unlock the constellations to high levels. And also Sucrose and Xingqiu have some of the best passives in game with their refundable abilities with 10% on the blacksmith, and also Xingqiu with 25% on the talent materials. If we're going for artifact sets, make sure you consider using characters for support and different support purpose, and also perhaps using the Noelle for DPS. Noelle really wants to build into defense, while Sucrose and Xingqiu can go in with elemental mastery and also their respective elemental damage with Amino and Hydro. The weapon choices for Noelle is very straightforward. Go for the White Blind, and that's the best one, and also Mappa Bear for Sucrose. Lastly, we have a lot of choices for weapons for Xingqiu, so it's up to you. Whatever weapon you have readily available, just give one to him and he will be ready. Now if you found this video helpful, make sure you subscribe and also turn the little bell on for the latest news. I'll be looking towards to make more builds, guides, tips and news and event updates for us as we come further into the game. And as always, I wish you guys the best of luck with Genshin and have the most fun in exploring this wonderful world.